If you've got any questions, to prefix them with a capital Q and a colon, as I've just done in that channel. That helps me to find the questions when we're scrolling through. With that said, please try to keep anything inside that channel on topic and quite short, so feel free to put little one-sentence comments in, but please no large commentaries because it'll make the page scroll too quickly for me to keep up with. This is a class that has no practical component. There's very little you can do with messing with your head in terms of a practical. So you can be anywhere you like as long as you're somewhere safe. Now the general overview of the syllabus for the class is we're going to talk a little bit about the attributes that all characters in Eve have and how they relate to your skill training. We'll then talk about neural remaps, which is a way where you can alter those attributes. Next we'll talk about implants, which are a specific type of item that you can use in game to increase your attributes, your learning attributes, and also to improve other skills that you have in game. Those types of implants are called hardwirings. We'll talk a little bit then about using jump clones and the distinction between a jump clone and a medical clone. Also some strategies for using your jump clones, not just for travel, but also as safe storage for some more of the expensive implants that you might choose to use. And the last topic we will have is booster drugs, which operate a little bit like hardwirings, but they have a limited duration. They are expended and they only last a certain amount of time. Then after we finish the course content, there will be an open Q&A where you can ask me any questions about anything that we haven't covered in the class or anything that we did cover in the class that you didn't ask your question about at the appropriate time during the content. I will say, before we begin to talk about boosters in earnest, I am not extremely experienced in the use of boosters. I have used them every once in a while a little bit, but as we'll talk about later on in the class, the majority of the really effective boosters are actually illegal in high security space. So you tend to find, unless you spend a lot of time in places like wormholes, lowsec or nullsec, that boosters aren't as useful as they can be. Consequently, I only have a limited amount of experience with those, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you've got. Okay, that's it with the introduction. There are a couple of people that I would like to ask to volunteer to help me out. I can already see that someone is recording the class, which is great. If I could ask whoever it is that's recording to please try to upload the class to the university forums or wiki. You'll find a guide for doing that on the wiki. That would be great, but if not, that's fine. I'm sure we can get another recording of this. The second person that I'd like to ask a favour from is someone in class at E-UNI to volunteer to link any items from the market that I'm going to be talking about. When we are talking about the attribute enhancing and hardwiring implants and also the boosters, it's instructive if we can all have someone to link those into the channel. So if you'd like to volunteer to do that, please put an X in the channel now. Oh, you had to be someone with a very difficult to pronounce name. I'm going to call you House, because that's what your surname is. So, House, you can be the person to do that. You'll find all of the boosters and implants in a category of their own, which is called implants and boosters. So, just have a look there. Okay then, so, first thing we're going to talk about, as I said, is attributes and neural remapping to change them. So every character in Eve has 5 attributes which determine the speed at which you train the in-game skills. If you go to your character sheet, if you don't know how to go to your character sheet, I believe the default is Alt-A, or if you just click on your icon, your profile icon on the top left of the neocom, that will open your character sheet. Then the 4th one down on the left says attributes, and if you go there it will tell you currently what your attributes are. You'll see you have 5 of them there. They are intelligence, perception, charisma, willpower and memory. Now, unlike other role-playing games that you might know, these attributes do not in any way directly change how you pilot your ship or how quickly you can go or any other sorts of things about how much money you can make on the market. All that they're used for is determining how quickly you can then train these skills in the game, which do change those things about how you play. Now, the rate at which you learn any skill in the game is determined by two of those attributes, and those attributes are considered to be both primary and secondary attributes. The secondary attribute only contributes half as much to the learning as the primary one. The formula for how this is determined is a little bit unimportant, but I'll link it for you now. It's right there. So what this essentially means is that for every skill point that is required for you to get into that, your primary attribute is doubly important as your secondary attribute. Now, in-game, if you look at any of the skills that you can train, you'll notice that they follow fairly regular patterns. So I'm going to go to the first skill that I've got on my page, which is anchoring. And I'll link that one for you. Now, anchoring is in the corporation management subgroup, and you'll probably notice that if you look on the market at anything inside corporation management, that they have memory as a primary attribute and then charisma as a secondary. The way you would find that out is if you click on the anchoring skill that I've just linked for you, go to the attributes tab, and you'll notice there it says memory as primary and charisma as secondary. What this means is that the higher memory and charisma I have, the faster anchoring will train. And the other three attributes will not affect how quickly this skill trains at all. Now, when you begin the game, you begin with a fairly balanced remap. What they mean by this is you will start with almost identical attributes and almost identical scores in all of those attributes. I actually forget exactly what the beginning scores are, but I believe it's 20 across the board and then 19 for charisma. Yeah, there we go. Default distribution of attributes is 20 for most of them, and then charisma, which only gets 19. So for the majority of new players in the game, until you've decided to change your default attribute settings, almost all of your skills will train at mostly the same rate. Anything which does have charisma in will train at a slightly reduced rate. Now there's a question in class now, which is what's the training time multiplier below the primary and secondary? This is actually the next thing I was going to talk about, which is good. All of the skills in game, based on their training time multiplier, require the same number of skill points to get into. So a skill which is considered to be a rank 1 skill, something like energy systems operation, which I've just chosen out of the blue because I've got it open on my character sheet. One is C has a training time multiple of 1. What this means is that it is the base that all other skills are kind of measured against. So in order to take that skill to level 5, you will need to invest 256,000 skill points into it. In order to get a rank 2 skill to level 5, you'll have to invest twice as many skill points. You'll have to invest 512. In order to get a rank 3, you'll have to invest 3 times as many skill points, so you'll have to invest 768,000. So the training time multiplier, which you can see if you go to your skills panel, which is the first one in your character sheet, and then open up any of those subcategories, you'll notice after the name of a skill, so let's go to electronics. If you have, well, I think everyone starts with electronics as a skill in the game, so you'll see electronics as a ×1 multiplier. If you have at any point ever trained the skill target painting, you'll notice that target painting is a ×3, turret destabilization is a ×5, and other things. if you have a fairly low number of skills injected into your brain at the moment and you don't have a very exciting character sheet, there is a small screenshot of my character sheet for the Alex, just to give you an idea. So you'll see there that propulsion jamming is a rank 3, radar sensor compensation is a rank 2, signal dispersion is a rank 5. So essentially it just makes some of the skills more difficult and more lengthy to train than the rest. Anyways, yes, so I was talking about the default distribution for your points is 20 in everything and then 19 in charisma. Now, as we look at the different skill subcategories there, so the categories such as drones, electronics, gunnery, or industry, they follow a fairly regular pattern. Corporation management skills are mostly memory charisma. Drones are mostly memory perception. Electronics are intelligence memory and the like. Now I do have a list of these for you so that you don't have to remember them all by heart, and I will link that to you now. This is actually from the syllabus that I'm teaching in the class from, so if you go to that link you will notice there's a nice little table there that will tell you what the different primary and secondary attributes are. Now there are some subcategories, the most kind of commonly used one of those being the spaceship command one, where sometimes they don't follow exactly the same pattern all the way through. So some spaceship command skills are perception willpower, which is mostly it's the Tech 1 ships, and then Tech 2 ships are willpower perception. And then also in trade there was a little bit of change there between willpower charisma and charisma memory. In general, ships and weapons are going to be using perception and willpower in some combination, and then support skills, industry skills, and science type skills are going to be using intelligence and memory, and then social and trade skills are mostly charisma based with some other piece on there. Now because they follow fairly regular settings like this, we can optimize our skill training to be faster at training particular types of skills than others by using the neural remapping feature that the game presents to you. Now, neural remapping is something that all new characters in EVE have available to them, and then all characters also get to remap once per year after they've done their first one. There are two types of remap that are available to you as a new character. The first one is the normal type of remap, which everyone gets, and that is the type that refreshes every year. So once you've used a normal remap, you cannot use another normal remap for a 365-day period. However, new characters are also given 2 bonus remaps. There have been some occasions when CCP have awarded bonus remaps to older players as well, but these are not particularly common. I do believe a bonus remap was awarded to all players who were subscribed for the Winter 2011 celebrations. So you start the game with 3 total remaps, 1 normal and then 2 bonus. In order to remap your skills, what you need to do is go into your attributes page, and down at the bottom you'll see neural remap available, and then it'll either show you how many bonus remaps you've got if you've got any, and it will show you when your next remap is available. If you've never remapped before, or if it's been more than a year since your last normal remap, it will obviously tell you that now, and there will be a button there to allow you to remap. I can't give you a picture of that because I am actually not able to remap at the moment because I'm in the middle of a remap. When you perform the remap, what will happen is you will be given each of your attributes with 17 base points and a certain number of additional points that you can then choose to spread among them. In fact, I think it's 14 additional points that you can spread. Maximum number that you're allowed to put into any one category, any one attribute, is 10, however. So if you start with 17 as the base, you can allot 10 extra into one particular skill if you so desire, and that will leave you 4 more to distribute, as you see. You can, of course, choose to spread those 14 distributable points into 2 or 3 or 4 different skills, but usually when people are performing remaps, they're doing it to specifically boost 2 of those attributes as high as they can go, so that they can focus on training those sorts of skills for a certain amount of time, and then they'll remap to a different type of map to train other sorts of skills. Now later on we will talk a little bit about the attribute enhancing implants, but for now, using just remaps and no implants, you can now see that the maximum score you can get in any attribute is 27. Later on we will be able to raise that even higher than 27. And the lowest point you can get is 17. That is the smallest number that the game will let you put a skill down to. Sorry, an attribute down to. Now, should you choose to perform a remap, there are some general guides. As I alluded to earlier, memory and intelligence are going to be very important for you if you plan an industrial career, or if you're planning to train ship fitting skills and some drone skills. Drones is a slightly awkward one to train. Croy has kindly posted a picture there for you for how many remaps, the interface for when you have a remap available. Perception and willpower, as I said, is very useful for ship skills and weapons, so that's combat pilots, both PvP and PvE combat pilots. Charisma is really going to be there for social skills and traders, which can be, social skills are often very sought after by mission runners to allow them to increase their standings very much. And charisma is also the chief attribute used in leadership and fleet command type skills. One of the more efficient ways to plan out using your neural remaps is to use one of the very popular out-of-game tools called E-UNI. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about how to use E-UNI for this purpose in the class at the moment, but if you are familiar with how to use E-UNI and you've set up a skill training plan in the past, one of the things that you can do with it is, if your skill training plan is fairly long, say it lasts more than a year or so, you can go up to the toolbar on the plan and choose Optimize Attributes, and then select one of the options there. Usually the middle one is the simplest one to use, which is attributes that would be best for the first year of this plan, and it will show you how to better do your attributes for the plan that you've set out. So I'll give you a quick screenshot of my current plan and what E-UNI is recommending I do. So that's on there. So for the plan that I had open there, which is the plan that I actually plan to do in about 2 months' time when I can remap again, E-UNI has calculated that the most efficient way for me to train those skills would be to put 10 into intelligence and 4 into memory, and not put any of those extra points into any other skills whatsoever. If you had a skill plan which had skills from lots of different categories, so say you were a younger player and you've got a lot of different things that you want to try and focus on doing, you might find that E-UNI recommends that you do a more balanced approach with maybe 7 or 8 in one of those, and then a little spread of the extra points. But as I said, this is going to be different for every single one of you, and explaining how to use E-UNI is a little bit outside the syllabus for this class. Okay, I've got a question here. If I want to use remap whole year, will in next year I get 2 available remaps? Right. In terms of using your remaps, the mechanics for that are, if you have a normal remap available to you, so if you've never remapped before, or if it's been more than a year since the last time that you used a normal remap, then when you press the remap now button, that remap will be expended, so your normal remap will be used up, and you will begin a 1-year timer before you can use a normal remap again, and your bonus remaps, if you have any, will not be affected at all. So you'll still have however many bonus remaps, be that 2, 1 or 0 that you had in the first place. If at any point between that moment and 1 year you want to remap again, and you have bonus remaps available to you, you can choose to spend a bonus remap in order to remap again straight away, and that will begin a new 1-year timer. So if, for example, you wanted to have a particular remap for only 3 or 4 months, say you wanted to put a fairly mild amount of training into leadership and social skills, and then after a few months of that you wanted to change into a more gunnery focused thing. The first remap that you did would begin a 1-year timer, and then you'd train your skills for leadership and social, and then a few months down the line you could spend a bonus remap to remap into perception and willpower, and then you would start a new 1-year timer. If, however, you wait more than a year between using your available normal remaps, you won't gain a new one at the end of the year, if that makes sense to you. The maximum number of normal remaps you can have is 1. I would imagine Croy has 4 bonus remaps because he is an old character and he's never used any of them. There have, as far as I know, been 4 bonus remaps kind of given out. Just most players have utilised all of their bonuses. Well, most older players have utilised all of their bonuses. Croy, like me, has been playing this game since before there were since they had learning skills in the game, which thankfully we don't have to talk about anymore. Anyway, so that was remapping for you. Any other questions about attributes remapping and how they affect your skill training time? So yeah, your skill training time is determined by your score in attributes. You've got primary and secondary. The primary is twice as important as the secondary. The game has 1 primary, 1 secondary skill, and you can remap every once in a while to change your skill distribution depending on how you want to train your character. Okay, we don't seem to have any other questions, which is good. So we're now going to talk a little bit about implants. Now there are 2 broad categories of implants. They are attribute enhancers, which, as the name suggests, enhance those attributes we've talked about, and then skill hardwirings, which enhance or add to the skills that you currently have trained or available to you. Implants are devices, essentially, items in the game that you can plug into your character's brain to allow your skills and attributes to be improved. You do have 10 slots available to you for putting implants in. However, particular implants will only fit into particular slots. Slots 1 through 5 are your attribute enhancers, and then slots 6 through 10 are for your skill hardwirings. Implants work somewhat like rigs in a ship, in that once you have plugged them in, once you have installed an implant, the only way to remove it is to destroy it. If you try to unplug an implant, it will be destroyed. So choosing to use an implant, especially an expensive one, requires a fair bit of thought and planning to make sure that you're going to be using them optimally. Plugging the wrong one in or something along those lines, you have essentially lost it. And if it's a very expensive implant, that can be a very expensive mistake. Now, one of the benefits of using implants, in particular the hardwiring implants, and when we talk about them a little later, the pirate attribute enhancers, is that every ship that you get in the game while using those implants will be improved by them. So there are implants in the game which make you go faster. Every ship that you fly will then go faster whenever you're flying around with that implant in. So they're a way of making very kind of broad changes to the way that every ship that you get into in the game works. Now, in order to use any sort of implants, the skill that you're going to need to train is cybernetics. Now, some implants can be used with cybernetics trained to level 1, some other ones require it to be trained all up to level 5. As you might expect, the more expensive and more advanced implants in the game require a higher level in the cybernetics skill. House, if you're able to link the cybernetics skill from the market, that would be great. Cybernetics is a science skill, so in itself it has obviously primary and secondary attributes of intelligence and memory, but it's one of the skills that is very important for people to train quite early on in their career because it opens up the types of implants that will make training everything else much faster for you. Now, I mentioned before that the implants come in a kind of two broad categories, which are the attribute enhancers and the skill hardwirings. However, there are some implants which don't really fit into those categories quite so well. The first of them is implants that all go into the slot 10 role, which are called mind links. Mind links add special bonuses to the type of gang boosting modules that you might use on a ship. So mind links don't tend to have a significant benefit to you on their own. They do offer slightly better percentage increases to things like shields and armor for the pilot wearing them, but usually mind links are used by a pilot who plans to take up a fleet command or wing command role in a fleet. That would be something like this Skirmish Warfare Mind Link or the Siege Warfare Mind Link. In fact, the Siege one is a much better example. And if we're able to get that one linked off the market, you'll find it in hardwiring leadership and then Skirmish Warfare or Siege Warfare. Yeah. So you'll notice there that this one gives an increase to the command bonus of Warfare Link modules, which is not going to help you at all unless you're actually sitting in a ship that's using Warfare Link modules. But it does have the secondary benefit of giving you a fixed 15% shield hit point bonus rather than the 10% that you would regularly get. And I mentioned earlier that there are pirate faction and other sorts of factions. How about now? Can you hear me?
Much more better.
Yay, fantastic. Yeah, my headset has a on-off button for the mic, and it's right about where the cable gets to where the table is in front of me, and sometimes the table turns my mic off for me. Okay, so I was answering the question for are the Generation 4s available, or just ones given out at Christmas. They are given out more often than just at the Christmas giveaways, but they are not seeded on the market or available through like loyalty points or anything along those lines. So they are a limited supply, but CCP seems to have been fairly liberal with giving them out. Obviously, they gave one out to every single subscriber at the end of last year. So while they are kind of rare, they are not extremely rare yet. But yes, they're another good example of just a two-set set of attribute enhancers that actually come with a secondary benefit as well. Okay, so in terms of which attribute enhancers go into which slots, the first slot on your character, and I should probably tell you where to find these things. If you've never installed an augmentation or anything else like that into your character, then the place where you can find them is on your character sheet again. You want the fifth one down, augmentations. And again, just for kind of clarity, I will link you my current implants, just in case you don't have any, and that's a very boring page for you. So that's what I'm flying with at the moment. So you'll see slots 1 through 5 have some attribute enhancers in, and then in 6, 7, and 8 I've got a couple of hardwirings that help out some other things that we'll talk about later on. Okay, so slot 1 is always going to be used for ocular filters, and they improve your perception attribute. Slot 2 is always used for memory augmentations, which improve your memory. Slot 3 will always be used for neural boosts, which improve your willpower. Slot 4 is always going to be used for cybernetic sub-process, which improve your intelligence. And slot 5 is always going to be used for social adaptations, which improve your charisma. Now, the names of these things will vary quite a lot when you start talking about things like the pirate sets, because they will be named in a way such as alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon and omega. But the slots that they go into will still help you figure out, without looking at the descriptions, which stats they improve. Now, the standard attribute enhancers come in 5 different strengths, 5 different flavors, and they will improve that attribute by +1 through to +5, depending on which one you get. To improve that attribute by 1 point, then you want the limited version of that thing. So for an ocular filter, that would be the ocular filter limited or limited ocular filter. If you can find one of those in the market, that would be great. In fact, all of these as we go through them. The +2 one is the limited beta, so I believe that will be limited ocular filter dash beta. The +3 will be called a basic, so basic ocular filter. Now, all 3 of these that we've mentioned, the +1, the +2, and the +3, all require cybernetics trained to level 1. So aside from a cost difference between these, obviously the +3s are more expensive than +1s, the skill requirements for them are the same. So as soon as you train cybernetics to 1, if you've got the cash to be able to afford to use the +3s, there's no reason not to use the +3 straight away. The next one in the line, the +4, is called standard. So if you look at the picture that I put in, that's what I currently have in, and then the +5 is improved. Now, standards require cybernetics trained to level 4, and improved require cybernetics trained to level 5. Standards and improves begin to get a fair bit more expensive than the first ones as well. Last time I checked, standards are around about 20 to 30 million each one, and the improved are well over 100 million each one. Okay, so any questions about using attribute enhancers? It's the ones that we've talked about there, which improve your attributes. A little bit later on, when we talk about jump clones, we will say a little bit about how my current setup of having 5 attribute enhancers in is not always the best idea for a combat pilot, but for now, because obviously you can only ever be training 2 of them at any one time. Okay, we don't seem to have any other questions about attribute enhancers, which is great, so we're going to talk a little bit about skill hardwirings now. Now, skill hardwirings go into the remaining slots, and these don't work quite the same as the attribute enhancers. There are quite a lot more skill hardwirings as well, like a very large number of them. In fact, there is a list on the E-UNI wiki, which I will link for you just there, of all of the different skill hardwirings you can get. And each of those columns, each of those rows, I should say, actually represents a whole field of anything up to 6 different implants with different strengths. So you'll see the first one listed on the page is slot 6 armor, the inherent implants noble repair system, which gives you between 1% and 6% reduction in the armor or hull repair module duration. You'll notice that the serial box says RS-601 through to 606. So there's actually 6 different implants available there, the 601, 602, 603, 604, 605 and 606, and each one correspondingly increases your skill in repair systems by 1 through to 6%. So if you consider that each of these rows could be anything up to 6 different hardwirings with the 6 different strengths, there are a great deal of them. This is why earlier on I was saying planning out which implants you're going to use is quite an important thing to do, because you can't just plug them in and take them out and see how things work. Now, earlier on I did say that we're not going to talk too much about EVMON. There is another tool called EFT, the E-fitting tool, which can be very useful for determining the effects of hardwirings in implants. And again, I don't really have enough time to talk about EFT in itself there, but if you are familiar with EFT, that's a terribly old link, don't use that link. Let me fire up EFT and get you a better one. There we go. That's a much more up-to-date recent link for EFT. If you're familiar with using EFT and you've imported a character into there before, then you may have noticed that on the character editor for your character you can go to the Implants button, and then it will allow you to test out what the effects of using different implants would be on your ship. So again, to give you a bit of an idea of just how many different implants you can get, I will show you a quick picture of just what you can put into the 8th implant slot. And this is, again, not even the whole page. It doesn't fit on the whole page. Apparently that picture is rubbish. Actually, I think due to the way that EFT works, I can't take screenshots of it using the tool I was using. Give me one more sec to try. Yeah, you'll just have to have a look for yourself in EFT for that, because I can't get a screenshot of it. Okay, we do have a question there about that software being Windows-based. Is there any alternative for other systems? There are alternatives. I'm not very familiar with using the Python tool, PYFA, the Python Fitting Assistant, because I have always played Eve on a PC. There is a Mac version of Python and the Mac version of EVMON. It's the GTK Plus version of EVMON, and you'll be able to find those tools listed on the official EVE Online forums, but I don't have links for those because it's a little bit outside of implants. Anyway, so skill hardwirings, there's a dizzying number of them. There is another really nice guide on the E-UNI wiki for using, on the official wiki for using hardwirings, which I'll give to you now. And then a third guide, which I really like, is by Ripard Tag, who is currently running for CSM. He has a blog called Jester's Trek, and he's written a guide. In fact, it's a 4-pack guide to using implants there, which can give you some good ideas on how to use. So the basic way that hardwirings work, if we go back up to the picture that I showed you earlier of the hardwirings that I have in, is that each of the different slots have a different array of possible hardwirings you can put in. So if we go to the market window, go to the skill hardwirings, and let's say we wanted to improve our ship's shields in some way. We'll go to shield implants, and we'll see that it's subdivided into implants that fit into slots 6, 7, 8, and 9. So in slot 8, we have the shield upgrades set of implants. They decrease the power grid needs of modules that require shield upgrades, so they work just like the skill shield upgrades. If you look in implant slot 7 in shields, then that is shield management, and they work just like the shield management skill does. They increase shield capacity. So depending on what attributes of your ship or yourself that you want to improve determines which hardwirings you want to put in. So if you were a miner and an industrialist, there are hardwirings which give you better refining yields, and if you are like me, you fly a lot of frigates, then you'll probably notice that I've got a set of hardwirings in which increase my navigation skill and my basic maneuvering skill, so that's the base speed of my ships and the base agility of my ship. There is just so many different hardwirings that giving you a instructive idea on which ones to use in every situation would take us way too long. If you have any questions about how the hardwirings work, then do please put them into the class channel when I move on to talk about mind links. Okay, so I mentioned mind links earlier, and I said that they're all slot 10 implants, and that they are primarily used for pilots who are flying fleet command types of ships, or the types of ships where they're passing on boosts and bonuses. The warfare mind links, so that's armoured, information siege, and skirmish warfare mind links, all increase the boosting that the relevant skill in leadership also improves. So the armoured warfare leadership skill, which increases armour percentage, is boosted by putting in the warfare mind link, in addition to the warfare link. Now, using links, and again, leadership is a little bit outside of this class, but just bear in mind that for any pilot that you're going to be doing leadership skills with, these mind links can make them considerably stronger, and more often with very large fleets, having a mind-linked booster in the fleet is almost a prerequisite. There is a fifth mind link, the mining foreman mind link. This one provides bonuses for mining fleets. It's a mining yield increase, and again it increases the base mining yield from 10% increase to a 15% increase. Okay, now I've said a few times about pirate faction implant sets, so we're going to talk about those a little bit now. As I said, they fit into slots 1 through 6, and rather than having the regular names such as such as ocular filters and memory augmentations, they have a different grading of names, which is alpha, beta, delta, gamma, epsilon, and omega. They fit into slots 1 through 6 respectively. Most of these are rated in two different gradings. They have a low grade set and then a regular grade set. The regular grade set isn't called regular, it's just called the name of the thing. So, for example, the snake set will increase the speed of your ship, but there is also a low grade snake set which is not quite as strong. Now they increase the attributes for the slot that they're in by +3 for the regular sets or +2 for the low grade sets. So if your only consideration is the increase in attributes, then actually these ones are not as strong as the standard or improved attribute enhancers, which can give you +4 or +5. The most you'll ever get out of a faction set is +3. However, most pilots that are using the faction sets are using them for their other bonuses instead. The faction implants, if you have a look at the Snake Alpha that's been linked there, you'll see that it gives the 0.5% bonus to maximum velocity. Now this may seem fairly small, and it is, but if we are kind enough to have the Snake Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon and Omega linked for us, you'll notice that each of them gets slightly stronger in its secondary effect. And all of them have this final line, the set effect of a 15% bonus to the strength of all Snake implant secondary effects. What this means is that the more of these that you plug into your clone, into your head, the more that they multiply together to give very, very strong boosts. The Snake set in particular, once you have all 6 of the regular grade sets in, multiply together with those bonuses to give you a more than 24% increase to your speed, which is quite a significant set. The same is true of things of like the crystal or slave sets, which increase your shield boost amount or armor hit point. Having just one of these in your head will have a little benefit, and having 2 of these in your head will have a better benefit. But having all 6 of them in will give you more than a 53% increase. Now, like most complicated things, these have been the math has been done quite a lot onto the EVE Wiki and EVE Online regular wiki. So you'll be able to see a quick guide there to using the Pirate Faction implants and how the multiplicative effect of their set bonuses can really very, very quickly increase their effectiveness. Now you will notice that there are 6 implants in every set, and I've said that these are attribute enhancers. So the 6th one, the Omega, which again someone has kindly linked the Slave Omega, which is not in the same set as the snakes we were talking about, but it works just as well for illustrating our point. This one you'll notice has absolutely no increasing effect at all on its own, other than an extremely strong bonus to the strength of all implant secondary effects. So if you have the Slave Omega in your head and none of the other slaves, it's going to be doing absolutely nothing for you. However, if you have the Slave Omega in and you have any number of other slave effects, anything up to all 5 of the other slaves in, then this is going to be adding a very strong extra bonus on top of them. Consequently, the Omega ones tend to be the most expensive out of the set. Now you can mix the low grade and the regular grade sets together and still get your set bonuses, however the multiplicative effects will be reduced. Now, all of the faction sets for your low grade ones are going to require Cybernetics 4, and the regular grades ones require Cybernetics 5. And again, the University Wiki has a fairly good table on these. You'll notice them just there, the Advanced Attribute Enhancer reference page. And if If we scroll down to, say, the tanking section, go to armor amount, you'll see that the slave set there gives you all of the stats that you will get for each of the things. So the first one will give you 5%, second one will give you first one will give you 1%, second one will give you 2%, etc., etc. All together, that will give 15%, and then the Omega adds another 50% on top of that, and that all finally multiplies together to give you that 53.63% that we were talking about earlier. Now, each of the different sets that you can see here have different uses. So you'll see things like the Grail, Jackal, Spur and Talon sets are all for increasing your offensive strengths. You have the Virtue and Centurion sets, which do not come in a high grade. You can only get low grade versions of those. Next you've got the Mining ones, the Harvest set, and again there is only a low grade version of the Minings. You have Snakes for your speed, and then Nomads for agility, and again Nomads are only available in low grade. And as you go down the line you'll see that there are lots and lots of different things you can get there. Okay, so that's about all I wanted to say on hardwirings and attribute enhancers. Do we have any questions about implants at all? Okay, we don't seem to have any questions in the chat channel, which is good. Okay, next we're going to talk about using clones in the game. If any of you have ever had your pods, your capsule destroyed, then you will know a little bit about medical clones already. In addition to medical clones, there are another type of clone available in the game called jump clones, but we're going to talk a little bit about medical clones just to begin with to make sure we're all on the same page. When you purchase a medical clone, or if you have a fairly young character and you can get by with a regular medical clone, what happens when you die is your consciousness, your pod takes essentially a snapshot of your consciousness and transmits it off to wherever your medical clone is, and then your entire experience and skills are then downloaded into a brand new body for you. What this really means is you're setting yourself a respawn point in the game, if you don't want to look at it from a RP perspective. One of the things that a medical clone comes with is a rated number of skill points it's able to contain. Now, everyone starts off with a free medical clone, and this one will take, I believe, 900,000 skill points before you need to start upgrading it. Once you have more than that number of skill points, or once you have more skill points than your current medical is able to take, if you die, if you lose your pod without having a medical clone which is able to keep the correct number of skill points for you, then you will end up losing some skill points from your character. Now, as I said, the lowest graded of these is 900,000. The highest rated medical clone you can get can actually hold an extraordinary number of skill points. It can hold 450 million skill points, but it's quite an expensive medical clone at 150 million just for it. I mentioned that if you lose your pod and you don't have an up-to-date medical clone that's able to take the number of skills that your current clone has, you will lose points. What you will lose is 5% of the difference between what you currently have and what your clone is able to take. So if you have 1 million skill points and you don't have an up-to-date clone and you've only got the basic alpha one which stores 900,000, then that's a 100,000 difference and you'll lose 5% of those 100,000. So if you have a lot of skill points, if you are one of these very older characters in the game and you've got more than 100 million skill points and you were foolish enough to die with this 1 million skill point clone, then you could be talking about losing, many weeks worth of skill points. So making sure you've got an up-to-date medical clone is always important. Now that's really all we need to say about medical clones. Jump clones work quite differently from medical clones. Now, in the university, we're able to purchase jump clones from a couple of corporations due to us having very good standings with them, and other capsuleers in EVE are able to purchase jump clones from any corporations they have high standings with as well. What a jump clone is a backup body, a backup mind, essentially, that you can keep in a station somewhere or in a clone vat bay somewhere in the EVE universe. And like I said, they're very different from medical clones in that you can deliberately move between them at will, rather than it being a backup that you go to when you die. Now, your jump clone, you can move into your jump clone from anywhere in New Eden, as long as you are docked up or in a pod and you don't have any skill training. So what you can do is very quickly move your consciousness from one jump clone on one side of the universe to another jump clone, well, from your current clone on one side of the universe to a jump clone on the other side of the universe in order to traverse that distance very quickly. One of the drawbacks of the jump clone service is that you can only move between jump clones that you have purchased a maximum of once every 24 hours. Now, in order to purchase a jump clone, you'll need to have trained the skill Infomorph Psychology, and every level of that skill that you have will allow you to purchase one extra jump clone. So if you have that trained to level 5, you can have 5 backup bodies scattered around New Eden somewhere, plus the one that you are currently occupying to give you a total of 6 different bodies. Now, you can end up destroying jump clones inadvertently. You are not able, due to game mechanics, to have 2 unoccupied jump clones in one station. Now, because when you are not in a jump clone, you cannot move it around, it will always be wherever you last left it, wherever you last jumped out of it or purchased it. So let's say that you are currently in one of your clones, and you have a jump clone in Aldrat that you've pre-purchased and moved there, and you have a jump clone in Jita that you have pre-purchased and moved there. If you dock up in the station in Aldrat with your current jump clone in it and attempt to jump to the one in Jitter, what you would end up doing is having 2 unoccupied clones in one station, and the game will happily just destroy your old one for you. Now, this will, if you have not altered your default setting, give you a warning message. So if you ever try to do this for the first time, you will get a warning message, but if you are foolish enough not to read the message and just press yes, what you'll end up doing is destroying your other clone. On the other hand though, jump clones are not lost when you are podded, per se. So if you have purchased 6 jump clones and you have them scattered around, if you lose your capsule Neurotoxin recovery require nanite control trained on. And nanite control, if any of you can tell me what the local price for that skill is on your market, that would be great, because I'm actually in null at the moment and it's probably not even available here, but it's a very expensive skill. Yeah, there's none on the market in Syndicate. If anyone can give me just a ballpark figure, I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the region of 300 million. Yeah, so it's quite a pricey skill, that one. But it's there, and it will help you to use boosters if you know, later on in your career you're using the strong boosters quite a lot. Then training one of these will end up being quite useful to you. Okay, okay, so do we have any questions about using boosters and how they work and what they affect on your ship? Oh, there is another booster actually, which I completely forgot about mentioning, and that's the Quaif Zero booster. Thank you very much for linking that. Quaif Zero is a fantastically great booster. It's a slot 1, but it's pretty strong, not as strong as a standard one. It's legal in high sec, and it has no side effects. I forget where Quaif Zero comes from. I presume it's some sort of booster that's only seeded by CCP. But yeah, Quaif Zero is fairly expensive in comparison to the synth boosters. Most of the synth boosters can be purchased for less than $1 million each. Quaif Zero, last time I tried to buy some, was in the region of 7 or 8 million a piece. But it's a 5% bonus to your ship speed, a 5% bonus to your scan resolution, so I tend to use this quite a fair bit since I fly a lot of frigates. Okay, Zensabo has asked, with a skilled character using booster and implants, how noticeable are the bonuses during play? They can really make an extraordinary difference to the abilities of your ship. Boosters are the types of things that are almost mandatory on capital ships due to the really strong effect that they can have on the ability for a capital ship to do self-reps. But even if you're in a ship like a Cyclone or a Maelstrom that has a tanking bonus, or like a Hyperion or an Incursus or Myrmidon, any of those that have a like repair amount bonus, the boosters that increase the repair amount are extremely strong on those ships and will really very significantly change the outcome of a battle if you use them. I tend to use crash boosters quite a lot when I'm in stealth bombers because they can help you to apply torpedo damage to small targets very, very easily. In terms of attribute enhancers and hardwirings, again, the full pirate sets have such extraordinarily strong effects that, again, they tend to be essentially mandatory for any of the very large, very expensive ships in the game. But even things like using crystal sets, which give you a shield boost bonus, again, on those smaller ships like battle cruisers that have shield boost bonuses, such as the Cyclone, can really very, very strongly augment the abilities of a ship like that. Okay, Anastasia has asked the question, do you need to be docked to use boosters? No, absolutely not. You do need to have them in your ship's cargo hold if you're going to be using them in space, but you just right click them on your cargo hold and choose consume, and it will begin immediately. One thing I should have said about implants isn't actually in the course notes, and I should probably write down to add that, is that in order to plug in any sort of implant, be it a skill one or a hardwiring one, you do need to pause your skill training. So do always remember to restart your skill training after you've plugged in an implant. But boosters you can just consume straight out of your cargo. Okay, any other questions about boosters? Okay, if not, then that is the end of the kind of material that I was going to cover today. I'm quite happy for you guys to ask any other questions about anything we've discussed already, or anything that you feel is along the right lines of this. If you did have any specifics about using EVMON or EFT to work out which attribute enhancers or hardwirings would be best for you, then I'm happy to take those now as well. As I said, I don't use Python, the Python fitting assistant, so I'm not entirely sure what its capabilities are, but I would be very surprised if it doesn't have a similar sort of capability. Okay, I'm planning a year's plan for a new character for combat PvE. Any tips? It depends on whether you want to use up all of your bonus remaps straight away or not. There is, for your main character, I would always recommend that people really hold off on using remaps, especially bonus remaps, until they've got a very strong idea of what they want to do, because of a year is a very long time to wait to do another one. If it's a secondary character that you're creating with a very specific goal in mind, then I have definitely done it so that the moment I create the character, I immediately remap it to something strong. I do that for anything up to 3 or 4 months. I immediately remap it to something else strong, and then do that for 3 or 4 months, and then I'll immediately, after that, use like the final remap to go back to something a little bit more balanced to take me out for the rest of the year. But if you know specifically exactly what skills you want to be training for the entirety of your year, then what you can do is use EVMON, like I said before, to input all of those skills into a skill plan. You'll need to make it quite a bit longer than a year initially, because when EVMON does its optimizations, it will make that skill plan much shorter. But you can, in the EVMON interface, the attribute optimization allows you to input your own your own remapping points. So let me see if I've got a plan here. In fact, I can definitely show you a plan from one of my alts that's doing exactly that. Okay, so this is kind of like the middle portion of a plan that one of my alts is currently running on. And you'll notice that above that little remapping point, I'm training mostly intelligence and memory skills, and then that's a remapping point that I've put in. Like I say, after I've done that, I know I'm going to want to remap here, and then the game has then EVMON has then kind of indicated that I should remap for 27-21, and then it shows you the times that come after that, what the time will be with that remap, rather than what your time would be with your current remap. My tip you would be definitely get into EVMON, put in all of the skills that you want, arrange them in some sort of sensible way that you can see, so that you can group up all of the ones with similar primary and secondary attributes. Put in a couple of breakpoints yourself, and then get EVMON to work out for you what the best remapping for you is there. But you may want to also do the same skill plan and then see if there is a year-long remap which is as good or not significantly worse. If in your entire year-long remap you're only saving, say, a week's time by doing 2 remaps rather than 1, it's probably better for you just to use the 1 remap and hold on to the bonus. Okay, got a question here. If I join a corp which provides jump clones all over Eve, and after a while I would like to move my jump clones to new stations, will I have to apply to this corp again? No. Once you've purchased a jump clone, it belongs to you, not your corporation. So if you were to join Eve University, buy jump clones using our jump clones, using the jump clone services available to us due to our high standings. When you leave Eve University, they are still your jump clones. The way you move jump clones around is by occupying them and then flying a ship around. You cannot put a jump clone into a cargo bay. You can't, give a hauler a contract to move it around for you. The only way you can move a jump clone is by using the game to actually occupy that clone for a while, fly it somewhere else, and then a day later jump back to a different clone to leave it there. Okay, any other questions about anything to do with messing with your head? If not, then I will be happy for us to wrap up the class about here. I did kind of schedule 90 minutes for this, and we're getting close to the 90-minute mark. I've linked the class announcement thread for you there. Any sort of comments that you have about the class today, I'd like you to put them in there, whether you thought it was good or bad, whether you thought it was dull, whether you thought the teacher should have known more about boosters before doing the class, anything along those lines you can always put into the request thread, and that is how, class announcement thread, that is how we make sure that we are improving the teaching that we're doing. But if there are no more questions, then I'm happy to wrap it up. So I'll stick around for another 3 minutes just to give us the full 90 minutes that we had. And if you have anything else you want to comment on, then please put it in channel. Other than that, thank you all for attending.